saying how excited we all are about this film, The Land. I've had a chance to watch it, and it's amazing. So congratulations.
Oh, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Yeah, it was really a huge labour of love in the end, the amount of time and commitment we put into it. But yeah, it's so nice now that it's just starting to get a little bit of traction.
So, mate, tell us a little bit about how you first became involved with the film.
So Cameron Stewart and I, the guy who writes and stars in it as well, as my kind of long lost friend, he and I had been at university together, and we were talking about writing something together for quite some time. And we came across an old article about a guy who had been involved in historical rape, and that 20 years later, the police came and knocked on his door. Basically, he was happily married at that stage, and basically charged him with rape from his kind of, former life almost, and how that upended his current circumstances. So we became fascinated by that idea, and we started to sketch out a treatment for a film. At the same time, Ingvar Kenne, who's a photographer and also a personal friend, we started talking to him about was he interested in anything, live motion. And he wasn't at that stage, but when we pitched him the idea of the film, and he had this land that he purchased with some of his super years ago, and we would go up onto that land to spend weekends kind of, acting like we were, I don't know, escaping from the city. And all of those kind of influences came together for us to be able to shoot the film, basically. And then we pulled Greg Ferris in, who we had no one really with the technical expertise, and also contacts on sound and lighting and cameras, and so Greg basically became our engine in that department.
Let's go back to the screenwriting for a little bit. Tell us a little bit about, was it an easy script to write, or was it a difficult script to write? Because
so
it was
we in terms of if I was to write a script for Screen Australia today, and we tried this, Cameron and I tried this several times. We tried to write a film about so we wrote a conventional script, but this one we decided not to. What we did was we wrote their backstories, all the three main characters. Then what we did was we wrote the treatment, so almost like a novel. We wrote the story,
yep.
And then we wrote a scene breakdown of how we thought the scenes would operate. A lot of those scenes didn't end up in the film. Like there's a 90-minute film in place now, but we shot the first cut was like 3 hours, 3.5 hours. And it could have been a slow-moving TV series. Then then we had key dialogue, so that in this scene you had to say this, and it might be one line. Sometimes and then the film was improvised. So every scene, in a way, we did, and that includes guest actors. So they didn't know what they were going to be saying in the scene, but we knew that they either had to say one line or something to get us to the next bit of the story. And then apart from that, we would just find our way.
How did you find that as a performer? Did you find that kind of liberating in the sense that you weren't tied down to a script? How did you find that?
Yeah, I think the access to a kind of version of naturalism is stunning. At the same time, you can't craft the performance in a way as an actor that you'd probably like. And so it gives more power to the director in the edit, to shape the film. But at the same time, it was just such a stunning, takes, because we were shooting so low budge, and, we were clapping the scenes with our hands. There was no clap load at all. And because of that, yeah, totally. Like when you're that small and you're that free, it feels like that you're not actually acting. There's no when they say action, you're not kind of rising to anything. You're within the moments themselves as they're happening, and that allowed us to really go there in a sense that I don't want to kind of extend the method acting analogy, but we really were able to, because we were using real locations. It's a Cassavetes technique, really, that you use your friends and your environments and your houses and your kids, like those kids in my family, they're my kids, and so suddenly the transition or the shift between what is real life and then what is the fictional life of the film is actually very narrow, and that allows for a naturalism or a raw version of naturalism to really prevail.
And now the cast around you as well. I am a huge fan of Annalise Phillips. I have been a fan of her since Young Lions, a TV show that happened about 20 years ago. And
She's
also,
amazing, yeah.
yeah, Lucy as well being in it. How did you go about settling on Annalise and Lucy as your co-stars?
Annalise and I had worked together, and we knew each other quite well. So I think I might have recommended her to Ingvar, and we were kind of going to this. That my family were kind of this version of the Von Trapps, like this kind of pure white. But there was this kind of notion that the notion of even though my character Jez is completely flawed and hopeless, and kind of living a lie, the veneer of the family, we wanted it to look like it was the ideal of it was people attempting to be perfect, but underneath it, the family was completely shattered and not actually. It was a lie, really. It wasn't the relationship wasn't even in place in a way. But also, we just know she's such a stunning actor, and she's a great person. We also needed someone that we knew could muck down and work in a way that was quite intense. So she's an incredibly not only gifted actor, but incredibly committed. So you don't want someone who's going to come onto set and be complaining about having to drive their own dialogue. And so she was right up for the challenge. In some ways, that the sequences at the family house when we're all there and Simon Cameron's character returns, we shot that all in like 4 days at my house. So we kind of gutted the house. My partner left, and she still jokes about the fact that she was taken out of the family photos and Annalise was put in. And in some ways, if we hadn't got through that weekend, the film might not have been shot, but we got through it, and that was largely because of Annalise's ability just to commit to being here with us.
Definitely. Now, you mentioned before about working with Ingvar. With your vast experience in the Australian film world, you would have had access to some other directors as well. What was it that made you decide to go with Ingvar?
It was to do with we were quite. Cameron and I have always been Mike Lee's films. I don't know if you know Secrets and Lies.
Yep.
He started out as actually a still life. So he was an art school graduate, and when we were looking at his films, he locks them off. He basically doesn't do much with the camera at all, and so the frame becomes something that life plays out in front of. The camera's not manipulating what's going on; it's observing what's going on. And I don't know if you should check out Ingvar's website if you haven't, because. So he's a portraiture photographer, and one of his most beautiful works is called Chasing Summer, and he goes from his native Sweden and chases summer across the globe and ends up here in Australia, where he ended up staying. And it's just portraits of people, and the way he captures people is just so stunning. So it was a sensibility more than, and also we sensed as friends, because we'd met him, that he was up for the next step in his career, like rather from still photography to motion picture. And it was just a sense that, and look, he was ruthless. I didn't know that. We used to joke that it was the cinema of cruelty, because he was constantly pushing for more and more and more on shots and improvisations, and to the point where we were like, oh, why did we choose to work with him? But he was incredible, and for the film would not have got made without his obsession in a way. Yeah. So once he started, he couldn't let up, and that includes post. Cameron and I at that point, for large parts of post, walked away, and it was only Iggy's kind of passion and obsession that got the film made in the end.
Awesome. Now, I'm very, very interested in the answer to this question, because we're hoping to use them for our next project. But what did you think of the Blackmagic cameras?
They were stunning. Greg Ferris is really the person to talk to, because he's the expert in that, and he brought them to the table. We bought, at the time that we started shooting, which is now, it's quite some time ago, so I can't remember. Let's say it was might have been, what year is it? I don't know, but let's say it was 2013, we had our first camera tests on the Blackmagic.
Yep.
So I imagine they're advanced quite some, like Greg was telling me, they've actually advanced quite some way since then. but they just give off, in terms of low light resolution, because we were on location, we had generator power. Those cameras were just so incredible on low budget. So we had two of them. Iggy bought one, Greg bought one, and I brought a Canon at that stage 5D or 4D, 5D, because we thought we might have mixed it up a little bit, but we ended up just only using the Blackmagics, and then obviously that little almost a high 8 camera that Cameron's character was carrying around, making his own little documentary. But they were stunning, and I think that they look, and the depth of field that they've got cinematically in terms of light on location without actual manufactured light is just second to none.
Definitely. As I said, the film looks absolutely spectacular. So
beautiful, isn't it? Yeah.
It does, and I think Blackmagic's probably the way to go from now on. I know we're certainly going to be using them.
The festivals that have picked it up, that's been one of the real comments, not only about the performances, the kind of the raw nature of the performances, and how. But one of the big comments has been how incredibly professional, cinematic it looks. So I think that's to do with those cameras.
Now, talking of festivals, the film has screened at festivals right around the world and has had great success at those festivals. What's your hope for the film now? Are you going to be looking for a release in cinemas in Australia, or what's the plan from now on?
We're hoping. Look, to be honest with you, the current climate and with the kind of nature of the film, we're looking at the moment a small theatrical release, hopefully in Australia. We're still seeing what it does, and then but basically we're hoping to get it onto one of the streamers, and we're crossing our fingers on both those. But we definitely have and we're also the cast and crew haven't seen it yet, so it's just been doing the festival circuit, and currently we're looking at a small theatrical release, but we're hoping even just to do a huge screening at one of the cinemas in Sydney coming up soon, so we can all get together and have a champagne, and people who are on it, who worked for Diddley Squad, actually get to see what they did.
Awesome.